Welcome back to the show. Regardless of what's going on, SEC files appeal, we still got good news and you're going to love it. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and digperspective.com for exclusive content. Right now, $2.21 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is off by 3%. We see Bitcoin 60,700 plus, 2,300 plus for Ethereum. Tether market cap 119 plus. How much longer? We got news on that front. USDC looking right now at 35 billion plus market cap. XRP number 7 spot, 52 cents. As you could imagine with the announcement of the SEC appeal, which was to squash the news of the ETF applications for a spot ETF here in the U.S. by Bitwise and Canary. We're off by 9.9 on the 24 and off by 10.7 on the 7 days. So you can see most of it is in the last 24 hours responding to the news from the SEC. Range of price between 51 and 59 cents. It looks like we're already recovering a bit here. Remember, this is an appeal, not a case being brought from its inception. This is not hitting as hard as the original case when it dropped. I want to tell everybody about Link2. Ladies and gentlemen, the best home for private equity in the world, bar none. Investments over $470 million, over 1 million registered users, and there's a reason why. It's because Link2 provides the best access to the top premier companies that are still offering private equity before they have some kind of a public exit. You know, like when a company IPOs or has a merger acquisition, you actually get a chance, like the wealthiest people in the world do, to own these stocks before they have some kind of a public exit. Ripple, for instance, Cerebras has announced they're going public, and you can still get the private equity there. Zipline, Uphold, my goodness, the list goes on and on. Don't waste another second. You get the most affordable minimums for the best private equity in the world, but all you have to do is click the link below the video, sign up, register, and get started before it's all gone. All right, speaking of all gone, thousands of Bank of America customers are locked out of their accounts and saying they can't get in. If they can get in, it's not showing any balances. This speaks to the current system, financially speaking, is antiquated and vulnerable, to say the least. I think Franklin Templeton has set the tone. They know it better than anybody. They have been building for years now on blockchain, largely with Stellar, but Franklin Templeton, for getting the T in there, Franklin Templeton files for Bitcoin and Ethereum index ETF with the US SEC. We'll see where that goes. Now, USA growing support for the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This was first floated at a Bitcoin conference recently this past year, just a month or so ago. And what do we know? We know that it is being talked about, and there has been legislation even introduced over the matter. We will follow it to see how this develops, but we know the current administration has not shown any favor towards the notion. Meanwhile, investors are changing, and we're talking about Wall Street investors, not crypto investors. Listen what they have to say about investing into Coinbase and the crypto space broadly. Take a listen.
All right, we'll take that. Why did you buy Coinbase? I know you bought it recently. Why did you do it?
Well, there's been so much talk from both sides as far as the Democrats and the Republicans and former President Trump in particular touting crypto in general, that the crypto market is likely to take off if indeed something happens. And I think something's bound to happen anyway, whether the Democrats or Republicans take control of the White House and or Congress, because it's long overdue. There are a lot of forces, a lot of Wall Street forces. There are just a lot of folks that would want to see crypto come to the fore. Not just blockchain. Blockchain is really what's behind crypto, but crypto, as far as I'm going to call it tradable instruments, are in vogue. They've been in vogue for some time. And I think if we get a favorable administration, we're going to see the laws change. And I think Coinbase will be the major beneficiary.
You know, I'm of the notion that we definitely are going to see some crypto legislation one way or another. And the reason I feel that way, call it cynical if you will, is because we've seen more money pushed to Congress through lobby donations in crypto than ever before. Historic amounts of money. So you know what that means? Something's coming. But as a single issue voter, I will be voting for the new administration of Trump before I'll be voting for Harris. I have seen enough out of them. And believe me when I tell you, I even talked about this last night in our private group. I don't need moral direction from anyone in Washington, D.C. I had good parents. I had good role models. That's not, if you're looking to Washington, D.C. leaders for some kind of role model for you or your children, you're the problem, okay? I'm voting for an issue that is standing in the way of my pursuits as an investor, an entrepreneur, right? As someone who is in this space, and I've had to do it before in my life, and it's the only time I find myself involved in politics. And that's why you hear me talking and pounding the ground now, because when government gets in the way of my pursuits and endeavors as an American patriot in this country, I have to stand up and do something. And once the log jam's over, you'll hear me stop talking about it. The U.S. SEC has moved to challenge the court's ruling on its ongoing case against Ripple Labs. That's right. They have filed an appeal. As you know, we covered it in depth on the first video from this morning. Please go watch it and all the necessary responses from legal pundits and from Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderati. Go watch that video right now if you haven't. But I want to say we have some things to talk about here because here's a little quick review of a few SEC officials who are involved in this SEC versus Ripple crap show. Jay Clayton, who dropped the lawsuit, and this is why I don't subscribe to right or left, just because Jay Clayton was a pundit, right aisle guy, appointed, and he dropped the case on us, and Gensler's made it worse. So there is no safe side of the aisle as far as I'm concerned at this point. However, we do know that the former president, who was against crypto in his first 4 years, and so was his treasurer, Steve Mnuchin, squashed it, has a much different approach now and has actually gone down and written in his campaign issues that he will make the United States a leader in crypto. So the lesson has been learned there, and that's how I will be voting when it comes time on November 5th. But you see, Bill Hemmon, we know what that guy's up to, right? We know what happened there. Jay Clayton, Electric Capital, crypto investment firm, right? After dropping the lawsuit on the last day as acting chairman, Electric Capital happens to be an early investor in Bitwise that filed for the XRP ETF the day before the SEC filed its appeal notice. How about that one? So here now Jay Clayton want to make money on it. And he the one dropped the lawsuit originally. Bill Hemmon left the SEC's enforcement director, and we know that he gave the free pass to Ethereum based on nothing. 2 months prior to Clayton filing Ripple lawsuit in December 2020, he went to A16Z. A16Z partner Mark Hayden happens to be an angel investor at Valkyrie with the founder Steve McClurg, who is also the founder of the company who just filed for the Canary XRP ETF. How about that one? Boy, I tell you what, well, that's a hell of a shovel old cowboy crypto got over there, isn't it? Mark Berger left his active role as the SEC enforcement director on January 12, 21 to head to Simpson Thacher, which is Bill Hemmon's law firm, by the way, just 2 weeks after Jay Clayton filed the Ripple lawsuit. Now, as of yesterday, we have a SEC enforcement director, Gerber Gerwal, leaving his job on the same day that the SEC files a notice of appeal in the Ripple case to leave to a private, undisclosed law firm. One can only hope he is going to Perkins Coie or Sullivan Cromwell or Simpson Thacher. That would really be the icing on the cake. It is so incestuous. That's what he's pointing out here. And something must be done to make sure that these people that are appointed in the SEC just can't go out and do this kind of thing where, I mean, I understand that, law firms want to seek out former regulators to, deepen their bench in their law firm. I get it. But there has to be some kind of non-compete kind of vibe here, or for at least 5 years, you can't take a gig with a law firm. There has to be something because this is so incestuous. It's the Fox running the hen house. That's what we see. That's what the example is. Now, oh boy, let me tell you right here, this is fire. I sat down a couple years ago with James Metal Lawman, and over the last couple years, we've sat down a handful of times, and we discussed the idea of the SEC Ripple case going all the way to the Supreme Court. Take a quick listen here. I've always suggested that in a split decision, it would be the early sales that were in question, and that would give the SEC the right to want to play whack-a-mole in this crypto space, because it tells them from the judge's decision, well, the judge just told us everything in the beginning is basically a security, according to Gary Goldman Gensler. So if you're arguing over the early sales, I could see the SEC overreaching once again from that decision and saying, well, that's enough for us to say everybody's a security in the beginning, so whoever we target, we got the reason to come after you, even if it ends up being a split decision for you as it was for Ripple. Your thoughts there?
Very possible. Brad,
right.
you didn't need to go to law school. You figured this all out on your own. Yeah, I could see them doing that. But I'll tell you, it's so weird. You know, they bring these cases and say, hey, Algo is a security, but they don't sue Algorand. Yeah. You know, in the Coinbase case, I guess Algo's in there and others. You know, so they don't have that argument now in the exchange cases, except for, you know, the Binance BNB token.
Which at that time we did not know, but we do know now in the footnote of the Binance case, the SEC was forced to admit that they made up the term crypto asset security. They made it up. They made it up. And they still get to do all of this. Speaking of that being very possible, then that brings me to the next question. In your professional estimation of looking at what's happening here, how likely is it that we see this case, what's left of this split decision, go to the appellate court and then on to the Supreme Court? Because I don't change my mind that some element of this may continue to go to the Supreme Court.
I think it's very likely. Because it undermines the entire
innovation.
It undermines the entire enforcement by regulation by enforcement strategy of this regime at the SEC right now. Because if you can't go after, you know, this undermines very much the case against Coinbase and Bittrex. Absolutely. And undermines a significant chunk of the Binance case. So they sort of have to appeal. Because this decision is going to be thrown in their face, and their response is going to be, well, it's on appeal. Judge Torres made a mistake, you know. So I would rate it highly likely, and I think people need to be aware of that, you know, that absolutely, that there's a chance that things will, the tables will turn at the Second Circuit, and then the Supreme Court will get it right, you know. I've written something that's going to be, guess what? In both of those cases, West Virginia and the plaintiff in the student loan, I think was Missouri, they lost. You know, they lost before they won at the Supreme Court. So things can change, and people need to be cognizant of that. This is a very important battle. It's not the war, but I think Judge Torres got it right. I've said that to you the first time you had me on, you know, when I had 100 followers, you know, several months ago. Yeah, you discovered me and I appreciate that. But I believe that you know, Ripple will win. This one thing they lost, that might be upheld on appeal, but I like the chances of Judge Torres's decision being upheld on appeal. But to answer your question directly, yes, I think appeal is more likely than not.
Yeah, it's going all the way to the Supreme Court because it's, look, you know, I'm always reminded of the early days, Stuart Alderati, when they dropped the lawsuit, said goodbye Howey test, hello Ripple test. And when you look at the summary judgment, the way they wrote that summary judgment with the blue sky laws argument, I mean, my God, that's a Supreme Court argument. That's not even a Second Circuit argument, right? That's a Supreme Court argument, the way they laid that foundation out. And I feel like, you know, just understanding that dynamic They're playing the long game. They knew from Jump Street that this had to be done for the entire space, as well as their own company, Ripple, and the use of the digital asset XRP. I really do believe that, and I think that's where we're going. Unless legislation is passed. Take a listen to what James Murphy says here.
They figured Ripple would quit. Yep. SEC really likes cases where people settle, you know, and so they thought they had a good case where they would just get an order, you know, that there'd be a fine, a big fine, you know, and an order that they could use to hit other people with. Hey, Brad, there's a possibility that by the time this case gets to the Supreme Court, there could be an actual statute passed in the United States that says these tokens are commodities from the jump. That's what the Lummis-Gillibrand new bill that was released yesterday says, that if you don't get rights to the, you know, ownership rights, equity or debt rights against the issuer, then it isn't a security.
Well, let's hope that FIT 21 Act could do the same thing, because that's what's been suggested by the majority whip in the House of Representatives, Tom Emmer. Shout out to him. We could see elements of FIT 21 attached to a year-end spending bill, and you could see some crypto legislation passed before Christmas, according to Tom Emmer. This gets more interesting, but remember, XRP is not a security. And that's not up for debate. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's see what they end up appealing. But Ripple may file a cross appeal to the SEC, and I would suggest looking out for this to be a high possibility, because they're going to raise the stakes for the SEC, which means if you lose, you're going to pay us. You're going to lose big on the decision, because we're going to cross appeal the original decision about the institutional sales, right? Oh, the SEC. And now you start thinking, well, this is why their enforcement director stepped down an hour before this all dropped yesterday. I don't change, and neither does Chad Steingraber right here. The future is set. XRP will be hoarded into a set of nodes that will be the most guarded financial pools of digital assets the world has ever seen. You are privileged to own it today. And I believe the same thing and always have. Now, this is Senator Gillibrand admitting that they have not been able to work well with the SEC. For the sake of time, I'll spare you this. It's an older clip. But she basically just says, you know, we're trying to work alongside of the, you know, the regulators, meaning the SEC, but they weren't really getting anywhere, right? So let's move forward very quickly here, because I want to highlight this as well. Cheer up, everybody, says Jamie. He says, FIT 21 bill will become law of the land once it passes the Senate. And you can see here, latest action, Senate 9-9, received in the Senate and read twice and referred to the Committee of Banking and Housing and Urban Affairs. So things are moving. We just have to see whether it gets done or not, whether it's this year or whether we're going to need a new administration to get it done, because they have made it very clear they're going to get it done. However this goes, I can tell you, I have to vote as a single issue voter for the nominee who has said that basically they're going to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. That's the one I'm going with. That guy's going to get my vote because of that alone. Listen to this clip of Stuart Alderati very quickly. And by the way, I have something else for you to see about Swift here in a second, and it's amazing. So take a listen to this. While all of this is happening, you won't believe what Swift is doing. Take a listen.
Both with the Republicans and the Democrats, we showed up at the RNC convention, we showed up at the DNC convention. We have met with the Trump campaign, we have met with the Harris campaign. Trump clearly, and the RNC clearly, has been very vocal. You look at their platform statement from their convention, 16 pages, one paragraph, clearly on crypto, saying we're going to stop the U.S. war on crypto and make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. The Harris campaign has not been so public, but privately, they have said that they are interested in hitting the reset button. So I do think that policy comes first. The policymakers in this country have to remove the impetus for unelected bureaucrats who are running these regulatory agencies to create policy through enforcement.
And DAI shows Gensler, Ward, and Harris. You know, there's your anti-general army. There's your anti-crypto army right there, and Elizabeth Warren is the anti-crypto general of that army. That's the army right there, and that's what we're up against. They gotta go because the UK leads the way in adoption of digital assets. Dubai is leading the way and cutting their own path, and we know that Ripple just got awarded an in-principle license from Dubai. And meanwhile, Coinbase states that they're planning to delist any stablecoin that doesn't support or isn't supported by the regulatory framework of the EU and the MiCA regulations, which means the only stablecoins being recommended to use is USDC and EURC, EURC, which is all launched by Circle. So according to this, Coinbase is acknowledging Tether doesn't classify as a stablecoin, and they will not be offering it starting in November. You can see it right there. Hey, we're going to watch this. It's about to get fun. Meanwhile, Visa launches platform for tokenized digital asset management, along with the notion that they are going to be launching a stable coin too. What did I tell you? Stable coins are a new use case. The private issuance of stable coins is the admission that we are going to see hyperinflated bonds and dollars coming back home, and hoping that this new use case of private issuers like payment companies like Visa and banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo will all be able to launch their own stable coins and hold those hyperinflated dollars and bonds so we don't have to. Isn't it going to be fun? I hope everyone's ready, because this is the signal that that's what's happening. The dollar is going to be in such dire straits to hold its value. They need a new use case to allow people who have never been able to issue digital dollars before the ability to do so they can hold the hyperinflated dollars so we don't have to. Exciting news from SWIFT. Starting next year, financial institutions from around the world will start trialing live digital asset and currency transactions on the SWIFT network, which goes hand in hand with the standardization of ISO 20022. No matter what any of these people out here try to tell you, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them, because it's happening anyway. How many times do people come out and it's not going to do it? You know, I tell you, people don't know, and I don't know if they'll ever know if they're not in this space, what it takes to really be an investor, to pay attention to your asset every day, to do the work that you've done, to use the downtime, your commute to work or winding down at home or before you get ready for work or whatever your moment is when you get to listen or on your lunch break. Whenever that moment is, you've chosen to educate yourself on the space. You've chosen to educate yourself on where you're putting your own money. And this gives you the strength in a moment like this to know where to leave it. Don't forget, it was Swift, Citibank, and Pega Soltani, the head payment products from Ripple, who all talked about the fact that they're working together. I'll give you the first 20 seconds.
Kalyani, SWIFT has played such an important role in helping cross-border organizations and banks interoperate smoothly. What does the next generation of SWIFT look like? And will you work together with other types of solutions that we heard like with Citi and Ripple to really tackle these issues?
And she goes on for the next 3.5 minutes there to explain that answer is yes. They're working with all of them and central banks and connecting regions of the world together, like the Middle East, where the UAE just gave Ripple a license, like Brazil, where we have deep relationships with Ripple, like UPI, the Universal Payment Interface for India, right? Ripple, deeply connected, or FedNow, Yeah, the U.S. infrastructure for which Ripple was a part of. Yeah, that's what the conversation was about. And that's why we understand that SWIFT is going live with trials of digital currency moving forward into the next year. Everything is on point. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. Know what you hold. I'll catch all of you on the next one.